We want to know their personality, their gifts, their talents, their advocacy, their core values, because as soon as they can answer, who are you? The world opens up to them. 100% no, they are not prepared. They are not financially prepared, and they are not career focused prepared. There's not a high school that I have come across in 18 years that really dives deep into the individual person, their strengths, and what can they do for a career that taps into those. If there's touch of AI, they can go in the completely wrong bucket, right? Colleges are not looking for students who know how to do AI. They're looking for intellectual curiosity, who want to come and fill their brain with a lot of great knowledge to go out into the world and be the change.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Unfiltered by Empowered, the podcast where we have honest, unedited conversation with educators, practitioners, change makers who are reshaping how we think about learning. My name is Anshul Lau, and in today's episode, we are turning our attention to a topic that sits at the intersection of education, aspiration, and financial reality. That is how to navigate college admissions in a way that is thoughtful, affordable, and genuinely student centered. I'm pleased to be joined by Shellee Howard, the founder and CEO of College Ready, and she's a global college admission strategist and a two-time best-selling author. Shellee has worked with thousands of students and families, helping them to secure places at highly selective universities, earn substantial scholarships, and many cases graduate debt-free and close to it. In our conversation today, we will explore what families and educators often get wrong about college readiness, how students can stand out authentically through passion projects and meaningful experiences, and how to think clearly about scholarships and the hidden cost of higher education, and how particularly to support young people to choose colleges that aligns with who they are and who they want to become. Shellee, it's a pleasure to have you with us on Unfiltered by Empowered. And to begin with, for anyone who may be new to your work, could you please give us a brief introduction to who you are and what you do before we carry on the conversation further?
First, I want to thank you for having me as a guest. I do appreciate it. It is my mission to help families, actually 1.2 million families, know that they can not only get into their dream school, but to graduate without debt. And so my mission is important to me, and that's why this podcast means a lot. How my work got started was with my firstborn. I am a mother of four. I have two boys, two girls. And my firstborn came home in middle school, actually eighth grade, and said, Mom, I know exactly what I want to do when I graduate. And I'm like, well, you know, I changed my major 5 times. He's like, yeah, but I know what I want to do. And I'm like, oh, great. What do you want to do? And he says, oh, I want to be a brain surgeon and want go to one of those really Ivy things. And can you help me? And that was 18 years ago. That young man was the reason why College Ready was started. I'll give you the very short condensed version and you can dig deeper if you'd like. But he did exactly what I recommended. I did go back to school to get my master's, and then I became a certified independent college consultant. Started touring colleges all over the world to really figure out what is going on in higher education and how can I prepare these students. Long story short, when he graduated, he applied to 12 schools, got into 11, had 7 full ride offers, got a full ride to USC, and Harvard matched it. So he went Harvard
Wow.
pre-med, yeah, debt free, not a dime. Then he went on to UC San Diego Medical School. So this mom got her son back in California. And then he is now the chief resident at UCLA Orthopedic Surgery. So he changed his specialty a little bit, but he stuck the course. And then the other three had such similar experiences. Everybody started asking for my help, and I realized how much fun I had inspiring teenagers to have impact.
So that's brilliant. And wow, such a journey that you've had. And particularly, I think your son has also done so well. And I think it's pleased to hear, like you mentioned, you have changed your course of study so many times. Even I have done that. But knowing that your like career counseling or you're channelizing them really help, I think that means a lot. I wish I would have had somebody who could have told me this is what I could be doing as a career. I could have picked this up early on. And I'm keen to understand, like you mentioned that many parents and people reached out to you for support. So what drew you into supporting like students and families formally, and what made you open this as a company afterwards, like College Ready?
It's such a great story. So I was sitting at my son's high school graduation front row because he was a salutatorian. So I was sitting up front. His graduating class was like 3,500 students at a large public school, and a young man was sitting next to me. And my son's up giving his salutatorian speech, and he leans over and he goes, "Dude, I didn't even know that kid was smart." And I'm like, "Dude, who are you calling dude?" And then he didn't know that I was his mom. And
Yeah,
I thought, wow, he is a normal, enjoyable young man who didn't freak out, stress out, have mental health issues. Kids didn't even know he was smart, apparently. And I thought, that is what I want for every child going through this process. He had a 4.6 GPA. He had a great test score. He had so many wonderful, um, accolades, but yet he had fun doing all of it. So my philosophy is, how do we help our children adults and get to the best college as a stepping stone along the path? So I don't look at college as the end game. I look at it as it's the bounce board to get them ahead for their future. That's when I knew it was so much more than just college admissions. It was really about preparing young adults to be amazing adults. And
yeah,
that was the reason why I think first triggered me to say, this is a business. This is not just a one-off. And, people thought, oh, your son must just be amazing, and I'm like, well, not really, because my second daughter got a full ride as well, and my third and my fourth, and I'm not that amazing.
yeah.
So I said, your kids could do exactly the same thing. And they said, will you help me? That's how it was all started.
That's brilliant. I think when, like you mentioned, that your story or your strategy has helped all your kids, that automatically stands out. And absolutely, that's a good motivation. So I understand that you also work with families as well as students directly. Am I right in assuming that?
Yes, I help parents understand what is
Okay.
their important path. As I'm helping the student academically and socially, I'm
Okay.
helping the family financially.
And when you meet a family for the first time, so what is the main emotional tone that you notice with your experience? You might have met so many families so far. Is it stress? Is it hope, confusion, or something else that you notice now?
I think over the span of time, I've seen it progress to be unique and different to this
Yeah.
generation. When I was doing it with my firstborn to my secondborn, there wasn't a big difference. It was pretty, where can I go? I'm excited for college. There was a lot of optimism. And then my second two, there was a little bit more, why do we have to go to college? You didn't use your major, you went into debt. I don't want that. And now we're back to, I'm stressed out, I'm overwhelmed, I'm worried about my child's mental health. I don't know where to
Yeah.
start. It's expensive, and there's a lot of fear wrapped around it. And so I help families understand that it's all in how you approach it. My son, and well, all four of my kids, they said, Mom, why is everybody else so stressed out during this process? And I'm like, because they didn't have a plan. They didn't have a
Yeah.
strategy. They just woke up and realized, oh my goodness, it's time to apply to college. That's terrifying. It's like adulting, getting to retirement and realizing you have no money. Like
Yeah.
that's a terrifying moment. So
Yeah.
we approach it very strategically where we focus on the student and the family first, get them centered, and then we can pick the best colleges and explain to the universities why they're a good fit.
So basically, a structured approach helps them to reduce the stress that they might have later. If there is no planning, that basically causes people with stress or confusion. And with the very well planning, they could get rid of stress and be more hopeful. Am I right in thinking that way?
100%.
Yeah.
I
And
mention it all the time. If you don't have a plan, you plan to take on debt. That's what it comes
yeah.
down to. Hmm.
And how early can somebody start planning, working with college ready, and how do you meet them in that space?
So it really comes down to the child's maturity. If you have children, listeners, you know what I'm talking about. You are number one or number two or number three, whatever. They're all unique individuals. And so I tell families, when you're teaching your child about art museums or science museums, why would you not go to a college campus and talk about college in a way that is full of opportunity and inspiration? And then when they're in middle school is the best time to start, depending on what they want to do and how mature they are. I have several seventh graders that are more mature than my 12th graders. So I no
Yeah.
longer believe that it's a certain age. It really comes with when the young person is like, I don't know what I want to do and I want to figure that out. That's the first thing we talk about. I don't know who I am and I need to learn that before I apply to college. We need time for that. I want to go to this dream school and I need at least 6 AP, IB, or dual enrollment. We need time for that. So if you don't want to make mistakes, the sooner you start, the less mistakes you'll make.
Yeah, absolutely. I think maturity definitely helps, but I think it's parents' awareness and understanding of how they would want to prioritize their kids' journey or their educational kind of aspect. That also makes a huge difference. But in your first conversation, when you meet a family or a child, uh, do you tend to begin with numbers, the student story, or something else entirely?
I actually enjoy it most when it's a whole family. So, in other words,
Yeah.
it's mom, dad, and child, because I want
Okay.
them all to hear this is what colleges are looking for.
Yeah.
Number one, they want to know who is your child, what have they done to prove it? And if you ask a teenager, try this, parents, who are you? And they will look at you like you've lost your mind because they're like, you know who I am, but they don't know who they are. And so it's really important that you teach your child to be introspective. And so when I meet with the family one to one for the first time, I want to get to know the child and I want to know what the priorities are. So, the first thing I ask is what is most important to your family? Is it the academic fit, the social fit, or the financial fit? Everybody says,
Yeah.
yes, I would like all three. I get
Yeah.
that, but we need to prioritize. If your family can't afford college, we need to make sure you get scholarships. Last year, our students received over $10.3 million in scholarships. That's important to that family. If it's the academic fit, are they looking for a top tier university? If so, they need to know what that strategy looks like to stand out. If they're looking for the social fit where they're going to connect with their future significant others, their people are going to be able to feel comfortable and spend time together. We want to make sure that that school has a great social
Yeah.
atmosphere for that student. So until I know that, it doesn't really matter what name
Yeah.
college.
Yeah, I think a right balance is quite right that with a financial bit is important with scholarship or like Ivy League college they would like to aim for. And with your experience, how do you help families when a parent's vision or student wishes are pulling in very different directions? Like parents would be practical about whether they get scholarship or not, whether it's expensive or not, but students would be inclined towards a particular reputable college or university, or their friends might have gone to different universities, or their siblings might have studied there. So how do you help families manage that kind of different directions, or how do you manage this interaction?
So it's important to take each person in the room and understand what their biggest concern is, because until I know what that is, I can't help them. So I will ask the parents, what keeps you up at night? I'll ask the student, what's most important to you? And then I help them understand there needs to be a blend before they pick colleges. Picking the right list of colleges is the most critical piece of this process. And so I want to know, what are family concerns? Is it the financial concern? Is it the academic concern? Then I have to be real with all of them. The student has no financial literacy
Yeah.
95% of my conversations. So when I tell a student that Brown just announced they are going to be $97,000 a year, and parents are like, "Ah!" And the child's like, yes,
Yeah.
that sounds wonderful. And
Yeah.
it's because there's a huge disconnect. The
Yeah.
parent doesn't want to go into debt. They don't want their child to go into debt. And so we have to really call out that monkey in the room. If that child is not set up to get large scholarships, that school should not be on their list if the family
Yeah.
can't afford it. I don't want families to use their retirement. That makes no sense at all.
Yeah.
And then I ask the student, do you want to take care of your parents when they're old? And they're like, no, that sounds terrible. And
Yeah.
I'm like, then you don't want them to use their retirement on your education. So that's why return on investment of this
Yeah.
education is so incredibly important to families that I work with.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you think that, like you mentioned about like fees also for colleges, so do you find that some families are hesitant or even embarrassed to talk about openly about money, that how much they would spare for education, how much they would have invested for their future planning? So how do you ease that conversation open that parents feel comfortable talking about it and then considering practically what options do they have for their children?
Well, I tell them my story for sure. When my son got, when he started picking his college list, I told him very honestly, if we don't get scholarships and you get into these schools, I just need you to know that's not going to happen. So I need you to be on board with me because we're a team. If we're going to apply here, we've got to get the big scholarship. So that was number one, is engaging him. I wasn't embarrassed. I wanted him to know that college is investment and that it is okay that I'm not just handing him this, that we are working together and it will mean so much more. The second piece I
Yeah.
let families know is if they don't have this conversation and they let their child apply and then get in, what are they going to do? So that's the second thing. The third thing is I let them know I'm here to make your life easier, better, provide clarity, and get you the dream college of your choice. But if you are not honest with me about what you want and what you need, we can go down a completely wrong road. So
Yeah.
I encourage them. The other thing I specialize in is reducing the student aid index, completing the FAFSA correctly, understand the CSS profile. 92% of families complete the FAFSA wrong. That is why they're not getting money. It's not because they make too much money. It's because they're not filling out the paperwork properly. So I say, let me help you. And that way we can get your financial house in order. I am not a financial advisor. I am a strategist. So I'm not here to sell them any product, which obviously makes them feel more
Yeah.
at ease. And then I tell the student, I said, listen, if you want to get your MBA, PhD, law, whatever that is, wouldn't it be great not to be in debt before you go and do
Yeah.
that? And they're like, oh, yeah, that would be awesome. So it's really helping them see what's ahead of them. And it's kind of like the deer in the headlight. You can see them, you're really scared, but
Yeah.
when they're up close, they're like, oh, they're so cute. So we need the family to understand what's coming, and it's nothing like anything they've ever done in their life.
Yeah, absolutely. Being aware of what's upcoming really helps them to prepare and plan properly and effectively rather than having a load of like debt or something as you move forward. And I would also want to understand that when you think about students you have supported over the years, what are the common threads that you have seen those who have thrived both academically and also personally?
Can you can you repeat
And
that,
so,
please?
so what are the common threats that you have noticed in students who have, like you've supported over the years? You might have seen their career journey, their academic journey. What are the aspect or personal attributes or academic attributes that you feel are common in the students who have done well?
Oh, I understand fully now. Thank you so much. So the first thing we do when we start to work with a student is we take them through some high school level assessments. We want to know their personality, their gifts, their talents, their advocacy, their core values, because as soon as they can answer, who are you? the world opens up to them. Then we're able to show them, here are great careers that fit your skills. Here are the majors you need to get to those careers. Here's how much money you will make. And will AI be doing that job when you graduate? That right there would save any human being a lot of time and save frustration, save money. So the ones who go through our program, they go right into their major. They're very focused. They get out in 4 years and they jump into a career that they are so excited to do. Versus the opposite, not talking about this, their parent says, just go be an engineer. You used to play with Legos. Then they go to MIT, they take on a boatload of debt, and then they realize, oh my gosh, I like to be outside all day. I don't want to be behind a computer. And all of a sudden, they find themselves in a really awful position. That is the difference between working with College Ready and navigating it on their own.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a really helpful perspective you're given. And even when you're like working with students and speaking with them, when a student is really doubting themselves, and what do you tend to say, or do you actually help to basically change their perspective?
First, I find out why. You know, so many times parents assume, I'm a parent, I have assumed, I'm not saying anybody else, that I know my child. I know what motivates them. I know what upsets them. And I'm going to be honest with you. I was shocked. I had each of my children do the 5 love languages. And what I did, it's a book. It's not my book, but I highly recommend it if you want to connect with your teenager. And it breaks down, how do you feel loved and how do you show love? And love is a kind of a big word, but it's really connection, feel good. And so I made it kind of a little fun project. I wrote down what I thought they were going to be. They took the assessment. I was 100% wrong with all 4 of them. So here I know exactly my children. I birthed them, I raised them, and I missed it completely. So I help parents to really listen without judgment. In other words, if a child says, I want to be a botanist, and you're like, oh no, they want to play with dirt all day. This is horrible. They're going to be on my couch. Like, don't go into panic. Think about what I do when I meet that student. I say, that's so exciting. I have a brown thumb. Why do you want to be a botanist? They said, because I want to save our environment, one plant at a time. So I'm like, oh, so you really care about the environment? Yes, that's why I want to plant. Well, do you even like planting? Well, no, I want to save the environment. And now we're off to, I want to be an environmentalist. I want to be environmental engineering. And all of a sudden the parents like, yes, that saved us a ton of headache. And so that's what I'm talking about. Sometimes the child gets very overwhelmed and stressed out because they can't articulate to their parents or teachers or friends what it is that's really important to them. When they're talking to me, we have a lot of deep conversation, and they bare their soul because it's safe. I have no judgment, and I ask curious why questions.
Yeah, that's really helpful. And I think students' passion or uh, basically their career aspiration is aligned with what their interests are, what they're more passionate about, what they're more enthusiastic about. And even that brings me to ask you, I think passion project is also a phrase that is used a lot nowadays. And when a child is planning for college or universities in the future, absolutely passion also plays a role in that. Somebody is passionate about human, they would be doing some degrees about human science or human resources, something. Somebody is more interested in plants, they would move towards botany particularly. It's a like a natural inclination. So how do you define a genuine passion project or like interest towards college driving from their own personal passion? And what would actually distinguish them, being it from a simple box ticking activity or actually driving their passion to making it into a career?
I can speak a whole hour on this one alone. You just opened up
If you
Pandora's
can,
box.
if you can be very brief in just mentioning that, that would be brilliant. Because even
I'm
college
try-
ready seems like a passion project as started for you, and it has been being very fruitful for you. And similarly, if a student is thinking about passion, making that into a career or like even education, how would that actually get started?
So this is part of what we do at College Ready. I have actually trademarked passion with a purpose
Yeah,
because you can have passion all day long, but if you're not doing something with it to help another human being, it's passion about what I want. And it's very I focused, and colleges don't want I focused. They want other focused. So the first thing that we do is we lean into the student and we help them get clear. Oh, there's so much I want to say. I'm going to give you just the top note, families. You can call me if you want a deep dive. But what we do is we start with the student. We help them to get clarity about those things that are really important to them, what they advocate for, and what they want to do about it. To the listeners, I have a Passion with Purpose project, and it's called EmpowerEducation.world. That opportunity is an international nonprofit that I started 2 years ago with students, where they lead students, and they've raised over $48,000, built 2 schools in Uganda to educate 850 children, support an orphanage in Oaxaca. That's not checking the box. So I had to jump right to what I think is super important. But if you want to know how to get from A to Z, I'm happy to have a conversation with you.
yeah, thank you so much. And now that brings me to ask you, how did your time in Uganda and the creation of Empower Education change your understanding of what access to education really means?
Wow. Well, I've been to Africa 4 times. I'm going to my 100th country, the Philippines, in April. And so I'm an international traveler, connoisseur, if you will. And what I've seen in all areas of destitute, and Uganda being one of them, is that when students have lack of education, they lack in future. And that breaks my heart. When I was in Africa, not only are they only getting 1 meal a day of porridge, which
Yeah,
can you imagine trying to even learn with that? That broke my heart. And then I found out then when a young girl becomes a woman, she's unclean and she cannot go get further educated. And I'm like,
yeah.
that is not okay. So you can tell this is my passion and my purpose. And I advocate for these young people because we're building a high school, the first one in Uganda, for these children to be able to go and get a high school education. What our dream is, they go and get a college education, they change the government, and they make it a place where all are created equal and everybody has the opportunity to be educated. So I'm hugely passionate about this area and would love to learn if there's other projects that people have, how we can support them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think absolutely the global perspective also makes a huge difference. So when you think about education now, with the insights you gain from your project in Uganda, do you see it mainly as a system, as a pathway, as a human right, or something entirely different?
In Uganda or in the US?
In the US that you're working. So I'm just wanting to understand that how do you think of education now with your insight and perspective or the, I think, learning that you gained during Uganda? How do you see it now? Is it as a system, as a pathway, or do you see it as a human right or something else entirely? Your like perspective to education, I meant.
Well, that's why I started the Passion with a Purpose project, is because the director of our school comes to our meetings and speaks with students, shows them pictures, shows them the impact they're making. Because what I learned when my son decided he wanted to be a doctor, I was very concerned that he was doing it for the DR in front of his name and not truly to serve his community. I took him to Kenya, Africa when he was 17 to prove to me which path he was on. And when he was there just 2 days, the connection he made with the clinic, the connection he made with the people who were so ill and needed so much attention, I saw him in his greatest impact. When he came home, the essay he wrote not only got him published in 2 books, got him Student of the Month, Student of the Year, got him
Wow.
into all of the IVs. Is there an impact? 100% there's an impact. And when our children see it, that they have such opportunity here, and we take it for granted every day, and then you go there and they're begging to be educated, you can't help but appreciate what we have here. And that's what I want students to see and feel and experience, so they can appreciate the hard work that they're doing and the opportunity to change the trajectory of their life.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think the thing that you shared about even your son, it's an example of where something very small or ordinary can evolve into something really powerful, or it could be a very impactful narrative for a student. And yeah, thanks for sharing that. And how do you help students when they come, or even their families, uncover their stories into their own life that they have never thought of as admission material? Maybe somebody might be living a life, or they might be having projects and activities. How do you make them realize that those are the stories that they never thought that they could help them make a story for their admission?
So I believe it starts at home and the opportunities we do at home. I started community service when my children were just old enough to understand what we were doing. I mean, I think they were in first or second grade. And so they grew up in a house that I valued serving our community. That opens up the world for them, that it's not all about them. So I would say that's number one. Number two is that the opportunity for the student to make impact gives them confidence. Really, they don't want to fail. This is a
Yeah,
generation of everybody's best day is on Instagram. I don't want to fail. And you have to fail to move forward. It's just part of life. And so if we protect our children from never allowing them to have these little micro fails, so we can pick them up and show them they can, keep going, they're going to be soft. And when they do fail,
yeah,
they're going to take it very, very hard. And so what I have to do is have to help the student get very clear about who they are, what matters to them, and how will they advocate for that. Because if they don't know, that's going to be a huge problem. And so it really starts at home, and it starts with, here's a simple example. If you see your child leading and others following, you pull them aside and say, did you see that? You're a natural born leader. Everybody wants to follow you. And then the final point is, we've taught our children, don't brag, don't boast, people don't like
yeah.
it. I get to teach them, you better brag, you better boast, you better bring your A game, or colleges are never going to let you in. So I have to unteach what you've spent the whole
Yeah,
18 years teaching, because
yeah,
colleges spend between 4 and 6 minutes reading about your child. And it's
yeah,
not a time to be small or be shy. So I get to really pull this out of them and
yeah.
help them to see why it will benefit them for their future.
Yeah, so that's really valuable. And also, I think that made me think that it's difficult for students to like accept failure despite their A game. And college admissions are also a very competitive process. So I believe with your experience working with families, and as the college experiences, it's also emotional as well as practical. So how do you support families and students when they do not get the offer, or it doesn't go the way they had hoped for?
So that's so important. We start at the very beginning. So when a student joins College Ready, as we're helping them figure out who they are, what matters to them, show proof of what they've done, we're also helping them to look at the essays they're going to be having to write about, so we can go and create those experiences. We don't wait until their senior year and say, oh, here's the quiz, here's the new question. No, we're building those, right? So we're talking about, how are you making impact? That's what colleges want to know.
Yeah,
So we're building them up, we're building their confidence, and we're also teaching them, you will end up 100% of the time at the perfect university for you if you're doing this well. Because if you're telling them who you are, what matters to you, and showing how awesome you are, if they don't want you, then it's not a good fit and you don't want to go there. When they give you that yes, they mean, yes, we really want you to come here, which means you're a perfect fit. So we help them to understand it's really about the relationship. You need the college, but the college needs you.
yeah, Yeah.
Without your body and your money, there is no college. So we want families to really lean in to be like, how do we make this a partnership? And that is helping your child be the best version of them. Isn't that what we want as a parent? We want them to adult well, and college just gets us there. So that's what we start with, is really making that connection to the schools. And if it's a REACH school, it's probably a REACH school for every student. And we prepare them for that. It has nothing to do with who they are. It just means that they can only have so many CPAs and so many philosophy
Yeah.
majors.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think you mentioned that. Even I'm thinking while you was sharing that even I have the financial attribute, I have the capacity to go to a college, but if college doesn't accept me, I don't know, I would still take it as a rejection personally. Even my family could pay for it, or even I could support it with a loan. So what would you say to a student who feels that they have done everything right for being at a passion project or all the activities and still receive a rejection? I know you mentioned that you might not be fit for college and it works, but thinking personally with that inclination, I'm thinking it would still feel like a rejection. So how would you counsel them? Or do you even consider them, ask them to consider second or third options as well? Or are the people focused on only fewer options? That,
Well, everybody, I shouldn't say most students have a
yeah,
dream school. Not everybody.
yeah,
I do have
yeah,
students who are like, oh, just anywhere in, New York is fine. Like they don't have like a school. But what I can tell you is if you never have failed in your life, that
yeah,
rejection is going to dig deep. And that's why we
yeah,
tell students these little micro failures. We're
yeah,
teaching them that nobody goes through life without ever failing. I'm sorry, that
yeah,
is just unrealistic. And so if we're helping them see that, wow, yes, I know you really wanted this club or this organization, but look, because you didn't get in, you were able to do A, B, and C, which you love so much, and you met these people, and it was such a great opportunity, and you wouldn't have been able to do that had you not got into that club. Do you see what I'm saying? So we're teaching them
yeah,
life skills. Like, we understand
yeah,
it hurts. I
yeah,
totally lean into them. And I said,
yeah,
if it's that important, go get your MBA there. You still got
yeah,
another round. It's not over. Or do 2 years at one school and transfer into your dream school. So it's never over. And as long as
yeah,
that child can articulate why, the hard part is it's usually a sign of immaturity. They pick a school based on location. I want to go to UC Santa Barbara because the view from the dorm, Shellee, it's amazing. And I have to help them. Well, they don't have a great medical program and you're applying medical. So
yeah,
the fact you didn't get in is really a blessing. And they're like, oh, so sometimes it's just their friend is going there or their parents went there or there's some connection, but it doesn't even really make sense for who they are, what they want to do. And so a lot of times it's misalignment or
yeah,
somebody
absolutely.
telling a student, you must do this, and they should have never been doing that in the first place.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And thank you so much for sharing. I wish College Ready was there when I was studying. And in your view, do you think universities or colleges do enough to help students explore their careers and pathways before they even arrive on campus?
Absolutely not. 100% no, they are not prepared. They are not financially prepared and they are not career focused prepared. There's not a high school that I have come across in 18 years that really dives deep into the individual person, their strengths and what can they do for a career that taps into those that will
Yeah,
make them the kind of money. So a lot of times I'll ask a student, what do you want to do? And they'll tell me, and then they'll look at the parent like, is that okay? Or they'll look at me and say, but I'm not really sure. I very rarely get a teenager that comes to me and says, Shellee, I know exactly what I want to do, exactly where I want to go. Like my son's story was so odd to me because I've maybe had it two other times in
yeah,
18 years. So it's not a very typical thing, but that's why we work so diligently because we don't want them to pick the wrong college because not every college has every major. So if they go, pick a college based on a major or career that they find out later they don't want, they have to change colleges, leave their new friends, spend an extra $100,000. I don't want that for them. I think we need to do it on the front end. And high schools, it's just not part of what they get graded on, and there's no funding for it. So it's just not a part of what they get to do.
And just out of curiosity, are you having any partnership with high school colleges or high schools particularly, so where you can give counseling to like group of students who might not even afford college ready, or are you only focused on particular families independently, or counsel them like on a personal level?
Oh, such a great question. I love partnering with high schools, and I am a go-giver. I will give the high schools everything I possibly can because college ready, it is my passion. Tonight, I'm speaking to a national charity league. Last week, I spoke to Laguna Beach High School. The week before was Mater Dei High School. So if you parents can get me in front of the right person, I would be happy to come and speak at your high school or do a webinar or a Zoom call.
Yeah.
I would love this to be in every high school and at absolutely no charge. It's so important to me. The problem is high schools typically have a high school counselor, and usually it's one to a couple hundred or at least a couple thousand. And they think they're going to be able to do what we do, but it is absolutely not possible. And they're doing such a great job. I love high school counselors. The problem is they just don't have the capacity. They're dealing with mental illness, they're dealing with truancy, and they're dealing with college admission. So I would be honored to come and speak at any organization or high school.
Yeah, if any listeners have got any contacts or any high school, then Shellee's contact details would be in the description. Feel free reaching out to her directly, or you can reach out to us, and we'll ensure that you can arrange a connection. And I think I'd certainly see it as a kind of very valid. That's why I think I asked you if you speak to high schools or like in a webinar format. So that would be really helpful to reach out to many people, because as you mentioned, even I also agree that high school counselors might not have that diversity of perspective and insight as you might hold, working with so many parents across different schools and with your own experience. That also speaks a lot. It's not a job, it's a passion speaking in your job for you. That makes all the difference for anybody. And I would certainly agree with that. And I think we did not even cover financial things. We were covering about scholarship earlier. We touched upon that scholarship is also important for some people. So what are some biggest hidden costs that families tend to overlook that you feel it's very important for planning for college?
Oh gosh, again, a whole nother hour podcast, but I'm going to give it to you as condensed as I can.
Absolutely.
There are four buckets of money. Okay. Think of it this way, parents. There's the need-based money, which means we just don't make enough money. And if you can get into one of the Ivies, they will pay 100%. Okay. That is one bucket of money. The second bucket of money is what we call institutional aid. That is where your resume, your child's resume is so impressive. They want to woo them and they want to pay them to come to their school and make their school great. That's a merit money. Then there is independent money. That would be your independent scholarships. Right now, if you're a junior, you can apply to the Coca-Cola scholarship. I believe it's $25,000 a year. If you're a vegan, you can apply for a scholarship for $10,000. So there are so many scholarships and so much money. And then on top of that, there's the money that comes from doing the whole thing correctly, having the right test score, having the right GPA. There is so much money. In 18 years, College Ready has helped families get over $80 million in scholarships. Last year was 10.3 with 29 students. We believe that every family should get scholarships, not because you can't afford it. It's not about that for me. It's about telling that child, you worked hard and you earned this. That is a huge skin in the game, important opportunity for that child, because now They don't feel humbled by somebody gave this to me. They feel like
Yeah.
I earned this and I am going to go
Yeah.
work hard to be successful.
Yeah, absolutely. And even I think you mentioned it quite right. And when families are getting serious about scholarship and financial aids, where do you usually encourage them to start? Is there a right time to begin?
Absolutely. So when your child promotes from middle school, 8th grade, they can start applying for scholarships for college, and people are blown away. They're like, but we're juniors. I haven't done it yet. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but start now. The real big money, where all four of my kids received their big opportunities, was picking the right college for the right student. My son was an overachiever. They wanted that. My daughter, she brought leadership. She brought community service. She had a great strategy. They honored her for that. So it's really picking the best academic, social, and financial fit and then applying to that school. Remember, college is a business. They need you as much as you need them. You bring a small resume, you're not getting money. You bring a beautiful resume, you're going
Yeah.
to get the money. But what happens in a job? You do very little at your job, there's no promotion. You work hard at your job, there's a promotion. It's all the same thing. And the sooner we can help our child put those pieces together, they're going to have so much earlier success.
Yeah, that's so true, and that makes a lot of difference. The sooner you start and be focused about what you want to do and achieve, that would help you make a quality of your experience reflected in towards your application that can help you get scholarship uh, evidently or surely. You have higher chances at least. And also now I want to dive into understanding how do you see technologies, including artificial intelligence, changing the landscape of college admission process, both in a positive and a concerning way?
Again, another podcast. So I'm going to
We need
answer
to
this
do
one.
multiple podcasts again. You have given me some thoughts now.
You have some great questions. So parents, if you have heard nothing else, I'd like you to really listen close on this. I'm very, very on the cutting edge of AI. Here's what's important for you to know. If your child has AI on their computer, take it off when they're applying to college. They have AI checkers, and even if it's Grammarly, even if it's so minimal, if there's touch of AI, they can go in the completely wrong bucket, right? Colleges are not looking for students who know how to do AI. They're looking for intellectual curiosity, who want to come and fill their brain with a lot of great knowledge to go out into the world and be the change. So if you think for a minute that they're going to just pop their essay into AI and copy and paste, it's not going to happen. Last year, I screened 27 of my clients and caught AI before it ever went to the university. The parents were horrified and they didn't think it was possible. But when we really started focusing on what was going on, it's because they put it in Google Drive. It's because they use Grammarly. It's because they
Yeah.
touched AI. Colleges want intellectual curiosity. They don't want AI's curiosity. So be very, very careful. AI can be great on another computer when you're mapping out, an outline, a topic, talking points, but do not write your essay with AI.
Yeah, I think you absolutely summarize it quite well. I use this analogy a lot when talking to people about AI. AI is like a kind of parrot on with a student library card. That parrot would know everything just to write, but would not know what meaning does it hold. So basically, when you're using AI, it takes away the personality from you. It doesn't reflect your own personality. It would know what to write best, but not for you. For like holistically, that represents entire knowledge bank, but it takes away your own inner passion or depth from you in writing.
100%. And you know what? Parents don't write the essay either because
Yeah,
colleges know it used to be period double space. Now it's period single space.
yeah.
Can't tell you how many essays I've read from parents.
And Shelly, from your experience, is there something that you used to believe about college admissions that you no longer believe now? And what changed your mind?
I no longer believe that college is out of the realm for somebody who can't afford it. I used to think when I started that college was so expensive that nobody could afford to go. I disagree with that now. I believe with a plan and a strategy, anybody can go. There are 10 universities that are tuition free. And so it comes down to what you don't know is what you don't know.
Yeah.
And it really is all about having somebody to support you. You could do your own taxes or you pay a CPA. You could sell your own home or you pay a realtor. So, and they're not all created equal. So you definitely want to get support. I say it takes a village to raise our children these days
Yeah.
because they're so connected to the social media problem.
Yeah.
And I want you to have that support for yourself and your child because it is a very important part of adulting.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I think when I'm speaking with you, I know your passion speaks out loud. But on the days when you feel very tired or discouraged by the system or the education process, what brings you back to the work?
The teenagers, 100%. I speak teenager. A lot of people give them a bad rap. I love how honest they are. I love they don't sugarcoat. I love you can see right through them. They haven't built up all of that facade. And so all I have to do is meet with one of my students and they tell me, Shellee, I just got an A, da da da. And I'm like, what am I worried about? Like, this is what life is about, celebrating the small wins and supporting them because they're the future for us as
Yeah.
we get old. If we don't lean into these teenagers, we're going to be in a really big world of hurt.
Yeah, absolutely. And uh, before we close, Shelley, I would like to ask you something. This is a new segment that we have introduced from last few podcasts. If the entire world was listening to this podcast and you could share a single message with educators around the world who are supporting students through the process of admission or even teaching at the colleges or the high schools, what would that message be?
Oh gosh, another podcast. I, I believe in inspiration. You have an opportunity. That's why people come to the United States, is it gives them an opportunity to really do whatever it is they want to do. But it's going to be really important for this generation. They want it fast. They don't want to take the time to dive deep. And so it's really going to be important for us to help them continue to have that intellectual curiosity, to read the book for fun, to have conversations without the phone being at the dinner table. So I encourage families to help your child be a child. At the same time, they are trying to figure out who they are and what matters.
Thank you so much. I hope if everybody was listening, they could understand that the depth of the message and the passion that Shelley reflects and represents. And before we close, briefly, can you tell our listeners where they can find more about your work, College Ready, or if they would like to get in touch with you? We will include the details in our description. But if you would like to share something, I think that'll be really helpful.
Absolutely. So for your listeners, I have put my two best-selling books on discount. So please go to Amazon. You can look it up by my name, Shellee Howard, and Shellee is spelled very unique. And then the first one is how to send your student to college without losing your mind or your money. We talks about that today. And then the other one is college admission simplified, where I really take it to a simple equation. If you would like to go and have a conversation about the Passion with Purpose project or an academic strategy, please go to collegereadyplan.info, INFO. And then if you would love to learn how your child could be part of the Empower Education Uganda international nonprofit, go to empowereducation.world, drop me a message and I'll send you the link.
And we'll include all the things that Shelly has mentioned about our contact details in the description of this podcast. And that brings us to the ends of today's episode of Unfiltered by Empowered. A big thank you to Shelly for sharing such clear, practical, and grounded insight into the world of college admissions, scholarship, and student futures. Your perspective on helping young people stand out with your passion that speaks out loud, and on making college both a good personal fit and financial realistic choice will be invaluable for educators, advisors, and parents listening to the podcast. We have spoken about debt-free or low debt pathways, about the real role of passion projects, about balancing ambition with well-being, and about education as a force for opportunity rather than pressure. I hope this conversation has given you both tools and reassurance for the work you do with students. For those who would like to explore more about Shellee's work, do check the episode description for links to College Ready and our resources. Thank you for everyone listening for joining us. If you found this episode helpful, please subscribe to Unfiltered by Empowered on YouTube or your usual podcast platform, and feel free to share it with your colleague or friend who might benefit from it. Until next time, stay curious, keep the conversation honest, and remain empowered. Thank you so much.